This is the racket I've been using pretty much since I said I was switching to the Babolat Pure Aero. It is the trusty Solinco 16 by 19 with an extra half an inch packed into the most important part. So Beckett was caught on camera trying to overthrow the NDP government after an extremely contentious election. So we've been forced to suspend him for 7 days with pay. And that means that you're stuck with me as I give you an update on the racket that I've been using for almost a year now. It began sort of as a throuple situation between it and the Pure Aero 98. On camera actually, I dumped it. I will use this for the next year. I had made a horrible mistake. And so I switched back almost immediately and have been using it ever since. This racket has seen me develop my game to a new high that I honestly wasn't sure was possible given how late I took up the sport, and it's been with me through several evolutions and devolutions of my game. So I'm here to share with you an update on my overall impressions of the racket, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and what my plans are moving forward. When I originally made the decision to switch to the Pure Aero 98, it came down to a few factors. One, my forehand was nowhere near as fluid as it is now, which is really saying something, and the racket gave me the extra control I needed to be aggressive while keeping the ball in court, even with that deeply flawed swing that I had. However, after about 2 weeks of using only the Pure Aero, I started to develop some extreme elbow pain. This wasn't completely the racket's fault, but it is a stiff frame that gives off heavy vibrations. And the fact that it allowed me to get away with improper technique over time is what I think led to all these problems that I was suffering from. So looking for answers, I decided to switch back to the Whiteout, and I noticed immediate improvement of pain on contact. Particularly in its 16 by 19 pattern, offers me a level of power and spin that I've only found in a few other frames. To be honest, I've never really enjoyed Beckett's 18 by 20 version, as I just found that it didn't have enough pop for me to consistently be able to hit the ball in a way that would be able to bully opponents across the court. The consistent response of my racket and the natural feel on contact allowed me to continue growing into the frame, to the point where I now have a pretty high shot tolerance, at least in rally games, against anyone 5.0 level and below. The racket encourages you to go bigger. It rewards loading your legs and exploding into the ball. As I've continued to use it, my forehand has evolved from something that was kind of flat, unreliable, and relatively paceless to something that clears the net with pace before settling deeper into the court than I've ever been used to. I've also put massive amounts of effort into improving my volleys as I've grown with this frame. This racket has proved an extremely reliable partner in that department, as it holds up to pace immensely well, and my directional control is unparalleled. And most of all, as I said in the video where I actually picked the Pure Aero, the Whiteout is a racket I trust. It gives me feedback when I mess up a shot, and it never feels like the result I get is disconnected from the response of the racket. Whereas that was one of my main problems with the Pure Aero. It just never really let me know what was going on. It just did the job for me quietly and sort of behind the scenes. But there are a few things I don't love about this racket. First of all, if I could pick it again, I wouldn't go with the extended length. As I've said before, this racket is great for volleys, but I'm a big guy who already struggles when people send the ball towards my body, and I felt like the extra half inch only exacerbated the problem for me. And at 6'4", I don't really need that extra help getting high contact points on the serve. And lastly, I'm not sure if this is entirely true or if this is just me in my head, but I feel like that extra half an inch in the handle added a little bit of flex to the racket that wouldn't otherwise be there if it was just the standard length. The second thing that I really noticed with this racket as I've started hitting harder is that it seems to go through strings at an extremely quick pace. Notching happens fast, and if I didn't have Beckett to deploy whenever I needed a new string job, the cost of restringing would start to add up quickly. One other thing I want to address that isn't necessarily related to this racket is that after about 6 months of using the Whiteout, I started to develop some excruciating forearm pain and pain underneath my wrist that sort of felt like someone had hammered a nail into it. And every time I contacted the ball, a sharp shooting pain would shoot all the way up and down my forearm. My arm was so tense that I would have trouble sleeping, and I couldn't play tennis for about 2 weeks just to try and rest it and see if there was anything I could do. While I was off, I trolled some forums and I talked with Beckett, and we decided to try and increase the grip size to see if that might help. My racket had actually remained unchanged from its original spec. I had one as a size 2 and one as a size 3. It is now, according to what Beckett just told me, 6 inches round. So it's pretty huge, and honestly, I could probably go an extra level up because the improvement was immediately noticeable. I think due to my lack of experience and just trying to learn on the fly, my grip was super tight on these smaller grip sizes, and the larger size allowed me to immediately relax my hand on the racket. So not only was the pain gone, but the effect actually allowed me to hit the ball even bigger and with more spin, because I was so much looser than before. So it turns out that size actually does matter. Something to keep in mind if you have big hands, because honestly, this has been a huge game changer for me, not only for pain levels, but for performance as well. So if you couldn't tell, I've loved my time with the Whiteout. I'm not the best player in the world, so you can take my opinions with a grain of salt, but I truly think that if you're in the 4.0 plus level, this frame offers a tremendous amount of spin, pace, and control, all in a package that provides you great feedback as well. Something that's pretty rare in the current market. Just stick with the standard length unless you need it, and you'll be fine. As for what's next for me, I've